Yo, what is up everybody, and welcome back to another Madden 24 online CFM game. We are now in week 1 of the 2026 preseason here in the Premier Madden League. It is year 4 out of 5 for this online CFM in Madden 24, and we're going to start off this video by talking about the two men who have been a part of this franchise, who have been the focal part of this franchise since we first took it over, Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. And throughout this video, we're going to do the usual, talk about any moves we made as far as free agency signings, potential trades, which there was a blockbuster trade made by our Los Angeles Rams for the first time in this entire franchise, and of course the NFL Draft. As you see, Julian Fleming taking that kick return back. So week 1, we ended up playing the CPU. The next 2 weeks of preseason, we played against a user. But for the CPU game, you know, the backups will be in for most of the game. Week 1, you get the starters for 1 week. Week 2, week 3, 3 weeks. So we'll get a quarter of Jalen and the guys. And like I said, we're going to start off with Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, because I left off our last video on a little bit of a cliffhanger note where we might not get Aaron Donald and or Cooper Kupp back for next season at all, because retirement is a real thing. Now, thankfully, unlike real life, Aaron Donald still wants to play football for the Los Angeles Rams, so he is back in the fold. Now, you'll notice that he is a superstar. Before he was an X Factor. Aaron Donald did regress a little bit, but not that much. I think he dropped down to maybe like a 92 overall, 93 overall. He really didn't regress that much. You know, for some reason, he regressed a decent amount after the first year, but after the second and third years of this franchise, he did not regress that much, so we'll take that. Now, unfortunately, we did not have the same luck for Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp went from a superstar X Factor to star dev. He dropped to around the 88 overall, I believe it was. As you see, yeah, all-man CPU will do their thing every once in a while. So Cooper Kupp lost his abilities. We lost Slot-O-Matic. We lost whatever else he had. Red zone threat. We lost that. So, you know, Cooper Kupp is now just an average guy, but he is still an above-average receiver as far as his statistics, his route running and all that. And he still got really good run after the catch abilities. So, obviously, we're still going to use Cooper Kupp. He has 1 year left on his contract. So, you know, we'll have Cooper Kupp stay in that slot receiver role. And, of course, Julian Fleming is now going to have to be the #1 guy with Kupp losing his ability. So, that's going to change our offense a little bit, but probably not too much. And Aaron Donald, of course, he is a superstar, not an X Factor, so that means, you know, he still has his abilities, and, you know, he doesn't have that 4th ability slot, but he wasn't a high enough overall to hit that anyways. But we still have inside stuff, and we still have under pressure, as well as El Toro, 3 really good abilities to have in our back pocket, so you know, the fact that we still have Aaron Donald on the roster at all is a blessing, and that he has abilities is a huge plus, because, you know, there was a really good chance Aaron Donald just lost that stuff after the 2nd season at least, but we got really fortunate with that. So, you know, even though we lost Cooper Kupp's abilities, we are still more than grateful for what we're getting from Aaron Donald. We're more than fortunate in that manner. Now let's talk about the NFL Draft, because as you guys just saw, our draft pick, the 31st pick of the 1st round, we took C.J. Donaldson, the running back. And Donaldson has some impressive physical stats and pretty fast as well. He's 6'1", 257. That is insane for a running back. And he has 92 speed on top of it. So, of course, we don't get to see the rest of his attributes until the end of the draft. But for now, I'm feeling pretty giddy about our pickup of C.J. Donaldson. Now, we still have Antonio Gibson, of course, but Antonio Gibson regressed a little bit, and you know, it's always good to get some fresh legs at running back and just look at how you could potentially improve the team. Antonio Gibson, I mean, was a little bit banged up last year, and there was a point where our running back depth was tested a little bit behind Gibson and Kirk Merritt. So, you know, at this point, it's year 4. Our team is pretty well set up. We have a lot of great draft picks that we've had over the past couple of years that we have transformed into bona fide starters on this team. As Puka Nacua, look at prancing Puka racing away from the pack right before the end of the 1st half. You love to see that. And in the 2nd round, we actually drafted a quarterback. As you see right here, Robbie Ashford into the end zone. We drafted Robbie Ashford to be a like-for-like backup for Jalen Henderson. So clearly, last season, Jalen Henderson was pretty banged up, had multiple multi-week injury stints, and even though Tyree Jackson was really good as a backup, I feel like, you know, Tyree Jackson was really good as a pocket passer, but I like having our like-for-like replacement as a backup, and maybe we get something special out of Robbie Ashford. I doubt it, but, you know, as I was trying to say before, we are in year 4 to CFM, and we have a lot of key starters, so that allows us to take some chances in the draft. We had to be really smart with our draft picks the first couple of years because, I mean, we had practically 0 guys that we were ready to start as, you know, we had 0 young players on our team besides, like, Byron Young and our left guard Avila and all that, so we had to hit on those picks. Now we can take some chances, have some fun, you know, take a running back at the end of round 1 and see if, you know, we can get a physical freak, which it looks like we may have. That's a physical freak right there, Jamar Chase breaking a tackle, as we now dive into our free agency recap, because our Rams had a lot of cap space going into the offseason, and we actually spent a lot of money. We brought in some big name players, including, as you guys might have saw right there, scary Terry McLaurin. McLaurin, in his age 30 year, is a 90 overall, but he lost his abilities. So he's going to be star dev. It's not the Terry McLaurin that you might think he is, but it is still scary Terry. He is still one of the best receivers in the league, and we brought him in on a 3-year deal, paying him about $20 million a year. On top of that, we also got ourselves Nick Chubb on a 1-year rental because we just had the money and might as well. You see, we still have 16.7 mil cap after all of these signings. We have Dre Greenlaw on a really cheap contract. So, you know, we brought in a lot of big name players, and our running back depth is definitely, well, I mean, solidified now. We talked about Gibson, we talked about Merritt, now we add Donaldson and we add Nick Chubb. So, I mean, there's a chance that, I mean, Gibson is running back 3 now behind Chubb and Donaldson, depending on what his depth trade and all that good stuff is. So, and of course the depth trace, we'll talk about that at the end of the video. You guys see right now the stats that we had at the end of this week 1 CPU game. It's a CPU game, so we're not going to take too much into it. We play with the backups a lot, just trying to solidify stuff on our roster, but our roster's a lot more solidified than it was the past couple of preseasons when we had a lot of positional battles trying to figure out who's going to start, who's not going to start. At this point, we know who's going to start at a lot of positions on our team, including one of our free agent signings, Joe Tooney, who is going to be our new right guard. So that was a nice pickup for us. For the second preseason in a row, we're actually playing the Buffalo Bills. If you have a good enough memory for whatever reason for preseason, you'll know that last year we lost this game by not being able to recover an onside kick. So, you know, we'll try to get whatever revenge preseason can bring us. As you see Cooper Kupp out there. So the one thing to talk about, especially, you know, from our free agency pickups, is the scary Terry signing and who he replaces in the starting lineup. And I think it's pretty obvious that not Cooper Kupp. It's actually not Cooper Kupp. It's going to be Puka Nacua that's the odd man out. So we have Fleming, and I still want to start Cooper Kupp in the slot, and now we have McLaurin as an outside receiver, and I think at this point we're going to have to move Puka Nacua to the wide receiver 4 role. I mean, you guys know how much we've tried to make Puka Nacua a thing, and I just, you know, he hasn't got one speed role since we started. He's gotten so many in-game upgrades. He went from a 67 or 68 overall all the way to an 81 or 82 overall, and he's still 87 speed. And at this point, it is a little bit of a hindrance to our offense. And looking at, you know, last year's postseason, not just the loss in the Super Bowl, but just overall in the landscape, I feel like, you know, Puka didn't really get much done for us. And, you know, I don't want to say he was a liability out there, but you know, there's always ways you can improve your team, and at this point, you know, I think we got to be smart. The Puka thing, it's just not happening at this point. We get a bad ball hawk, so we're gonna bring in McLaurin, and you know, McLaurin is 30, and we have him on a multi-year deal, so that means, you know, we're going to have to deal with whatever regression he has for season 5. But the plan there is that, you know, we're going to have Terry for the next 2 years, but we're not going to have Cooper Kupp after this season. So Cooper Kupp, when we took over this franchise, he had 4 years left on his contract. It expires after this season. So after this season, it's simply going to be that we're going to let Cooper Kupp walk into free agency unless he retires, which I hope he does retire, because I want him to be a Ram for life. I don't want him to sign with anyone else, as McLaurin right now showing his worth in a rain game in upstate New York as CJ Donaldson, the rookie. Oh man, that is some tough running. You love to see that. You got a 257-pound running back. You want him to be one tough customer to bring down, and CJ's proven just that so far. So yeah, the plan is for Cooper Kupp to hopefully, either retire, if he goes into free agency, it'll be maybe a scenario where like he's going to regress a lot if he doesn't retire. I think he's already at 87 or 88 overall now. I can only imagine what he would be going into his age 34 season because wide receivers regressed pretty tough. So yeah, we'll have to let Cooper Kupp go, and even if we bring him back, it'll just be in a veteran role as like a guy at the back end of our wide receiver depth chart. And then after that, we'll have Julian, we'll have Terry for one more year, and we'll have to bring in a third receiver. But as you guys can tell the way I'm talking, man, you always got to plan, not just for this season, but for next season. You want to plan for 1 year ahead, for 2 years ahead. Always got to keep that in the back mind when you're team building because, we're playing GM here. We are playing for not just the immediate future, but the long-term future. Now, at this point, the long-term future is not that long. We only have 2 years left, but still, you got to keep an eye on stuff like that. And now, if Aaron Donald retires after this season, which there's a pretty good chance, because, he's 35 or 36 right now. I can't believe he's even playing this season, to be completely honest. Then, I feel like our defensive line is pretty well set up. At this point, I feel like we built our guys. Obviously, there is no replacing Aaron Donald and his abilities of inside stuff and under pressure. Like, that's just, he's a one-of-one. But I feel like we've built our defensive line to have a number of bodies to help us stave off that loss with Rayshon Benny, who is now a superstar. Thankfully, he kept his dev after the Super Bowl week, of the offseason and all that. We have Gabe Hall. We have Ashton Galat, who we drafted last year, who would probably play that right end spot, not inside though. Our inside guys would be Benny and Gabe Hall. And yeah, I feel like we have guys to stave off the Aaron Donald retirement when it comes, because we still have another year of him. We're definitely going to cherish that. So you guys are going to see the rest of our draft picks. We actually did not have many draft picks in this year's draft. We drafted 2 offensive linemen, and you see a free safety. That'll be a backup guy. And that's the end of our draft. We have 5 draft picks. And we traded away a couple of our picks, including a 3rd round pick. We actually traded away to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a future 1st round pick. So we'll see. That's something that we'll try to make come into fruition to be a decent draft pick going into the final draft, which is obviously the least valuable draft because you're going to have those guys for 1 season before we move on to the next Madden. But hey, man, you never know, man. 1st round draft pick, you can still hit on some top talent, as we score a touchdown here with CJ Donaldson, I believe, once again. And we see we're rotating all of our running backs in here, including Antonio Gibson out the backfield. At this point, we're in the second half, so we have the backups in here, including the rookie Robbie Ashford, who, it must be said, is performing pretty well in a rain game. This is an absolute dot on 3rd down to Kobe Bowman, who was a late draft pick from last year's team. And I don't think Kobe Bowman's going to be able to develop into that guy that we need him to be to take over once Cooper Kupp is gone. But, I don't know, man. We'll see, man. Because Kobe Bowman, we gave him 1 game against the Seahawks, and he played well, and then we just kind of buried him at the back of our depth chart. But we'll see, man. We'll see. And going into this upcoming season, as like I said, we're always looking 1 year into the future, so we got to look at who is on an expiring deal. So it's going to be everybody that the Rams drafted in the 1st year that were rookies in season 1, like Byron Young, like Steve Avila, and like Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. And yes, Puka Nacua is going to be one of those guys. And Puka Nacua is already somebody that I'm staring at where I'm like, yeah, we're probably not going to be re-signing him, unfortunately, because there's just not much value. He's going to ask for a pretty sizable contract, given he is a young 82, 83 overall receiver. Is Ashford? Holy cow, Robbie. Look at him flying in for 6. You love to see it. Nice spark from the rookie, as he's definitely proving his ability to be able to run the ball. You guys saw he has 90 speed, so we had that in our back pocket, and that's what I was talking about, getting a like for Jalen Henderson, to have a backup quarterback who plays like him so we don't have to change up our offensive style. Calvin Ridley was not one of the guys we saw from our free agent signings. He is, I think, at 81 overall, but, he was just somebody we signed after the draft, and right now he's making a pretty good case to not only make our roster, but maybe even take that wide receiver 4 role from Puka Nacua, as we taunt the Bills guy a little bit here just because he taunted us earlier. Come on, man, it's preseason. We don't got to taunt, but if you want to, we can, as Puka Nacua in for the touchdown. Now, as far as the rest of the guys, obviously we got to re-sign Byron Young. He's a superstar, 92 speed, outside linebacker. No reason to even think about letting him walk. Steve Avila is going to be one of those guys as well. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson should be interesting to see whether we bring him back or not, as Terrence Brooks gets the interception here. Terrence Brooks, if you guys may remember, was drafted as a superstar last season for our Rams, and we just didn't play him, and he actually regressed back to normal depth, not so surprisingly, because we didn't play him. And I mean, that was just a scenario where it was cool that he got superstar dev for us, but I wasn't going to force him onto the field because we had a team that was in a Super Bowl window, and we had decent safeties in Grant Delpit, Bo Braid, and of course Devon Jackson, where that was just a luxury, and a luxury that went to waste, I suppose. But I'm alright with that, man. I'm alright with that, because I feel like Bo Braid, Grant Delpit hold it down, and obviously Devon Jackson was a madman. Now let's talk about our blockbuster trade. It's about time we talk about sending away Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson. Yeah, I was holding on to that one. We are not re-signing Trey because he is going to the New York Jets for the 13th pick in the 2026 draft. Now, I know what you're wondering. You didn't show us the 13th pick. Well, that's because after we made that trade, we sent the 13th pick of the draft to the Carolina Panthers, a reroute for Brian Burns, 91 overall edge rusher. So we eventually pretty much flipped Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson into Brian Burns, which was a move we could definitely afford to make because we had the cap room. And even then, the Panthers, after the year one season, actually re-signed Brian Burns to a huge contract with a lot of guaranteed money. So not only do we have Brian Burns, he actually doesn't cost a lot on our books. Brian Burns' cap hit for us for the next 2 seasons is under $10 million. So we have one of the best edge rushers in the league for a pretty great bargain. So that's really exciting. That was one of the reasons why I was okay with making that move. On top of that, I mean, that was the one spot on our defense that we had, a spot to fill. Where, we had Dylan Brooks, we had Jadeveon Clowney, Ashton Gillott, a number of guys playing that opposite edge spot of Byron Young. Now we have Brian Burns, and we still have some of those guys back, like Dylan Brooks, who is still going to be a backup for us. We still have Ashton Gillott, who is now going to go into a backup role, even though he is a starter quality player. With Aaron Donald returning and Brian Burns being brought into the fold, is just going to put Gillott back there. But I mean, we have tremendous depth for injuries that we know are going to happen at some point in the season, and we have guys now. And thankfully, we have running back depth because Kirk Merritt just got a ruptured disc. That is a monster injury. I don't know how long that's going to keep him out for, but I mean, we're definitely not going to be seeing Kirk Merritt for the season opener with a ruptured disc. So it's a good thing we have other guys to put into that spot as RJ Maryland makes the grab. RJ Maryland with a nice first down. He'll be in his second season. And you guys are seeing Jackson Dart, who is our quarterback 3. We signed him on a non-guaranteed contract just to be that third guy. Potential backup of Ashford doesn't work out because he is a raw prospect for sure. Maybe Dart is that guy, but Dart's been a little up and down the preseason. So I think Ashford is kind of winning that backup quarterback battle. So as far as trading away Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson, I mean, he was a great corner for us. He's one of the fastest corners in the league. He has 98 speed. At this point, he was like an 87 overall or 88, as you guys saw. He was heading into a contract season. His motivations were really low, so we were going to have to overpay to keep him or franchise tag him. And on top of that, I mean, he is 5'8", and we have the coaching tree that gives us speed for our cornerback room. So 98 speed, we had him at 99 speed essentially, but we already had 3 99 speed guys before Trey with Azariah Thomas and Kobe Durant. And of course, we had Ro Torrance. We had Ro Torrance and Azariah Thomas kind of flip-flopping that cornerback 3 role, and Azariah became such a great player for us that, it was hard to keep. It was almost impossible to keep all of these guys off the field. We had a plethora of cornerbacks. We still have Diamador Lenore, who we signed last offseason. So we have a number of guys that we had in that cornerback room, a lot of talent. So Trey was expendable at the end of the day. He was our one trade piece that I was willing to move around, and we kind of just played a little bit of chess with that move, where it's like, yeah, we moved him for the 13th pick, but we used the 13th pick to try to get a star player because, I mean, it would have been nice to draft somebody really good with the 13th pick. That was definitely an option, but you know, we got 91 overall with the 13th pick. Whoever we drafted, it would have been really hard to develop them into a 91 by the end of this CFM. So, you know, Brian Burns on a contract that's under 10 mil a year, he's like 8 or 9 mil a year on the cap for the next 2 years. We'll definitely take that. As you guys see, the top guys from the draft, maybe some of the guys that we could have drafted at 15 overall, and you see our draft pick. CJ Donaldson ends up being a 74 overall to start off with, and I mean, his attributes are kind of cracked. He has 94 trucking, he has 90 juke move, I believe that said. Even his short route running and catching is, 90 juke, 89 break tackle, 93 acceleration. For a man who's 6'1", 257, I mean, this guy is a tank, and he's got a little bit of wheels, so that's really exciting. And, you know, it's gonna definitely bring up some debates about how we handle our running back rotation. I think at this point, Antonio Gibson might just be the clear number 3 guy. Even though we didn't regress much in the offseason, it's just that we brought in better talent, I suppose, because Nick Chubb is at 89 overall. He's normal or star dev, but, I mean, he's pretty good. Ashford, unfortunately, ends up not being good, but I was kind of expecting that when I drafted him. I knew he would be a project player. It was just, you know, 90 speed, that kind of stuff doesn't grow on trees for quarterbacks, and he has, you know, his throw power is a little bit to be desired. But we also, talking about coaching trees, we have the coaching tree to give us throw power upgrades, which I don't think we have fully upgraded at this point, but we're pretty close to getting us having +3 throw power for all of our quarterbacks. I think it might be at +2 right now, but we have a lot of preseason to play to get that up. So, you know, with Jalen Henderson, that's going to give him like 95 throw power once we finish it up. And for Robbie, hopefully we can get him to 90 or get him some upgrades to get him even further than that, as you guys check out the rest of our draft picks. And funny enough, all of our draft picks ended up getting star dev. We went 5 for 5 on drafting guys that got star dev. And considering the criteria for what it takes, I mentioned in the past, the way this whole setup works is that the commissioner of this league simulates a season of NCAA 14, where, you know, all these players from the draft class are in a college universe, and then they, you know, that draft gets transported into this version of Madden, which is Madden 24. And as far as the dev traits, there is a random selector that, you know, it's essentially a lottery, and you get more balls in the lottery, right? Like, think about the NBA draft, right? Where you get more picks, you know, more chances if you're, you know, a lower overall. You get more picks, but not like that. You get more picks if you know, are a 5-star recruit out of high school, if you play for a top collegiate team like Alabama or Texas that has like a historical great background, if you played for the national champions, if you won an award in college, if you won, like, let's say for tight ends, the Mackey or the Legursky or something like that, you know, all those kind of awards, those all get factored in. And also, if, you know, you have a veteran on your team, something like that, where you have a veteran at that position, I think it gives you an extra ping pong ball as well. So it's not something that I really think about too much when I draft, to be honest. You know, it's definitely a strategy to use in the league, which is one reason why I like this Premier Madden League. A big reason why. The draft is really fun. The draft classes are super deep, as we nearly return a punt here with Azariah. And, you know, you get your chances here, especially with the lower round guys, have more chances at getting a dev trade and, you know, finding some diamonds in the rough, which we did with 3 fifth-round picks getting starred. It's pretty hard to do. Now, granted, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because that free safety is never going to see the field unless we have a bombardment of injuries. And to be honest, there's not really too many injuries in the secondary, knock on wood, in this game, as opposed to pretty much every other position. So, you know, Terrence Brooks never saw the field, so who's going to say Vincent Dunley's going to see the field, right? And then those 2 offensive linemen, they're going to be backups, and I doubt they're going to be able to progress, even with star dev, to ever become a starter for us. Oh, man, you want to talk about someone that become a starter? CJ Donaldson, late in the 4th quarter. Still not giving up on the game, showing off what he's worth, and it's worth a whole lot. And on top of that, CJ Donaldson is star dev, and I think that really influences our decision on what to do with our running back rotation. I think we got to put CJ at the top of it. He was our first-round draft pick, so, you know, it was always leaning that way, but at the very least, I was willing to split the carries between Donaldson and Chubb, because Chubb is clearly proving that he's still got a lot left in the tank, even though he's 30 years old. He's still at 89 overall, and he's still a bruising runner with some finesse, but Donaldson, I mean, he might not only be the future for us, he might be the present as well. So that's the way our team is shaping up as we conclude the preseason. So that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed what you guys saw. Hope you guys enjoyed our preseason breakdown. We finally made a big trade. I didn't even touch on the last part, man. We did sign Travis Kelce. We did sign Travis Kelce. He is 36 years old, and for some reason he did not retire yet. And I just wanted to have some fun to bring Travis into LA and bring the Swifties into LA. We got our own press box for Taylor set up and ready to go for all home games. So we have everyone accommodated, and Travis is not going to be a starter for us. We have RJ Maryland to be the starter, but Travis will be the number 2, man. He'll be a great locker room guy to have at the very least. As you guys see, our injuries going into week 1. Ultimately, only 2 of these guys are going to miss the season opener: Havenstein and Kirk Merritt. Kirk's out for 6 weeks. That's a little rough, but thankfully we have running back depth, right? So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave a like on this video if you guys did. Subscribe for more Madden 24 online games. I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you, as always, for watching.